Hello everybody and welcome to Skrrt Garage. My name is Connor and today I'm sat inside my 1991 E30 Touring. And what we're going to do today is do a review of this car. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, welcome back. We are in the interior and we're going to talk about the interior first. First things first, this is just a nice place to be in, especially if you were in the 80s. There weren't too many cars that really focused on driving, especially in that day and era. But BMW was one of them that really tried to enhance the driving experience. And you can tell immediately when you're sat in the passenger seat that this whole dash is centered towards the driver. The steering wheel comes up to greet you, and it's almost like a UPS driver or something. It's got this lean to it that's forward. It allows you to see the gauges very easily. And the nice thing about this interior is it's just super simple. The instrument cluster has 4 big circles. One is your speedometer, one is your tachometer, and the 2 ones on the side are your engine oil temperature and your gas. That's all you need to know, and it's here and it's easy for you to see and to read. And yeah, I think I've said it in another video, but I currently have houndstooth sport seats, and for being seats that came out of the 80s, these are pretty good. I mean, they remind me a lot of the current seats that are in the cars. They still have the adjustable kind of thigh support that come in the newer, more modern BMWs. So good on them for having that. The other thing that I'll tell you is everything works. The stereo works, I guess the blower motors for the air conditioning. The ergonomics of the car is just really nice. And I have taken my baby and my wife in the back multiple times, and there's tons of room back there. And if you fold the seats down, there's an incredible amount of room in this car. I think I've said it in a different video, but I was able to fit 8 wheels and tires into the back of this car at one point. That was insane. The people at Tire Rack could not believe, first off, that I was using this thing as a wheel hauler. They thought it was super cool, but the fact that we could fit so much in such a small little car. And I guess back onto the topic of size, I have to show you guys this. It's just incredible what size has done in the last couple decades, because this car, believe it or not, is smaller than the other BMW in my garage. That is the BMW M2. So check this out. Okay, now we're going to talk about dimensions real fast. Over here we have the 91 3 Series Wagon. When you say that sentence, you think what it looks like, you know, long, tall, fit your family in it, all that stuff. But in reality, guys, here we have, I'll try to line this up as best I can. Here we have a 2018 M2, which is totally filthy. Please forgive me on that. Pretty much bumper to bumper with the E30 Touring. And if you walk towards the back, we see that the M2 is far past where the end of the wagon goes. And it's not just that. It's actually such that the M2 is wider, longer, and it's taller. If you look back here and you see the height of it, it is actually taller than the height of the wagon we have right here. It's just kind of funny that one of the smallest cars that you can buy from BMW today still is larger than what would be considered the family practical choice in the 90s. But I know that's not why you guys are here. You guys want to know a little bit more about what it's like to actually drive and own one of these cars. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go out, we're going to drive around, and I'm going to talk about a few other fun or just interesting parts of the ownership of this car and highlights of this car in general. So for that, let's get it out on the road. Alright, first thing I want to talk about is probably the engine, because a lot of you guys might want to know about that. This engine is called the M40 B18, and it's a successor to the M10, which is a 4-cylinder that's been around for a really long time. that engine was the bare bones for this engine and also for the S14, which is the engine that came in the BMW M3, the E30 M3 of the time. It's a nice engine. I mean, I don't want to say that it's fast or that it's maniacal or that it has crazy intake noise, because the truth is it doesn't have any of that kind of stuff. But what it can do is get 26 miles to the gallon. It starts up every single time. There's very little things that could go wrong with it, which is really pretty cool. And you can rev it out. This is a 30-year-old car, but it revs out pretty cleanly to 7,000 RPM. What I will say though is this engine is known for having its camshafts go bad with higher mileage vehicles. So if you are looking at buying one, make sure that when you do drive it, that you do push it above 5,500 RPM. Because at 5,500 RPM, if you do have bad cams, nothing will happen, or it just simply won't rev past 5,500 RPM if they are bad. So what I will do right now is kind of show you what this thing can do. Jump back. There's 5.5, there's 6.5, there's 7, there's the fuel limiter. And there's 80 miles an hour. Would I say that the engine is fast? No, I really wouldn't, but it revs, and it gives you the sensation of speed even though you're not really going fast. It kind of reminds me of like a Miata in that sense. It gives you the sensation of speed even though you're really just kind of hearing all the engine sound and the exhaust sound, and kind of just cruising at moderate speeds. Alright guys, I want to talk a little bit about the steering feel. As you might notice here, I'm turning the wheel a lot. This car has 4 turns lock to lock, which is a lot. And so what you find yourself doing in parking spots is like really struggling to turn the car in tight spaces. But the good thing and the very cool thing about having all that lock is that when you're in a large sweeper or like a long corner, you can find your line and then make tiny little adjustments to the car once you're in that line. And I find it really, really nice when you're on any sort of, I guess high precision driving environment like the track, or if you're doing autocross where it's a little bit more loose and windy, not so tight and technical, because this thing at a very tight and technical course, it would get gobbed up, not because it can't handle, but because you're going to be fighting the wheel trying to make those tiny corners. The other nice thing about the steering is that it's hydraulic, and it has so much communication coming back to the wheel. And part of that is just there's less and less and less intervention between me and the wheel, so I can just feel everything. And not that this car is made to be driven at 10/10 on the track everywhere you go, but having all that information is just nice. It makes you feel like you're a part of something bigger than just this little car. I'm gonna jump down into second, I'm gonna turn here and come out of it. Again, it's not a fast car, but it gives you the sensation that you're going faster than you really are, which for a 30-year-old car, that's more important. You're not out trying to race and compete with, modern sports cars, but you're trying to have that experience in something that's so much more pure, so much more simple, and that's what this car is. Not only that, when you get in this car, it reminds you of any other BMW smell. It's incredible. I don't know how BMW does it, but their cars, they smell the same, and just kind of has this nostalgic sound and smell to it. It really makes you, once you own an 80s and 90s car, you end up owning more of them. And it's this weird thing, but now, if I ever to replace this car, I would be looking to get something similar to this feel. Because, as I've said before, this car, the E30, it's truly a benchmark in the segment of 90s, 80s cars. And it's like that for a reason. It's cheap, it's reliable, it's easy to work on, and it gives you a interaction with the road that's hard to find these days amongst modern cars. Before I forget, there's this one road that goes from one highway to another, and I take it every day coming home from work, and it's like a sweeper that's almost a mile long. It's massive. Every time I get a new car, when no one's around, I try to hustle my way around that as fast as possible to just see, what kind of lateral grip my new car has, right? And up until this car, the car I felt most comfortable really pushing it on was my Lotus Elise. That car, I got up to some considerable speeds, and you wouldn't believe me, but this car got to the same speed. And it does it very differently. I think that the Lotus feels very holistic. The whole car kind of shifts as one as it goes through a corner, whereas this thing does have body roll, but it's body roll with a purpose. The whole car kind of pitches over, and when it pitches over, it feels like it sets into its groove, kind of like football cleats, getting pushed down into the grass. This car kind of squats over to gain more grip, and when it does that, I feel like you can just be surgical with the wheel and with your throttle inputs. Granted, this car isn't outrageously fast, so you do most of that with your steering wheel, but it's very impressive nonetheless. Alright guys, in conclusion, do you get heated seats and turn signals that stop themselves? No, you don't. But you do get a very cool car. And to summarize this whole thing, you can find cars that are around 20 grand that are better at hauling things, that are faster and more reliable. Sure, you can find cars that are better in maybe one or two of those categories, but you won't find a car that's cooler than this. I take this thing to car shows quite often, and sometimes they'll have me park next to modern supercars, and it's so interesting to see the kids that walk up to the supercar and then pass it because they're like, oh, there's a Wagon, check that out, and it's manual. So I can summarize it like this: this is probably one of the coolest cars you can buy for 20 grand, and it's definitely one of the funnest driving experiences you can have as well. So with that, guys, that's going to do it for us here at Skrrt Garage. I hope you have enjoyed this little review of my E30 Touring. I love this car. If you ever get a chance to drive one, definitely do so. With that, we'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace!